Hello, Heidi Lynn from Harnessing Life here. Today I'm going to talk about economic abuse and how it can affect your brain and your body. Now, I define economic abuse as anything that relates to the household. So financial abuse, abuse of the children, abuse of family resources, so like a car or going to school or anything of that nature. I personally feel that economic abuse isn't talked about as much as other forms of abuse. And yet 94 to 99% of victims or targets experience economic abuse along with other forms of abuse. So some ways that this can affect you are trust. Trust is huge because once broken, as we all know, it can be twice as hard or more to regain. Once, especially when it's broken in the form of betrayal, that trust can affect the rest of your relationships. If you don't take care of it through the healing process, then it can affect you and your relationships for a long time. Other ways it affects you, economic abuse affects you, is that you can feel trapped or isolated. You can have guilt, shame. Abusers typically also make the person dependent on them, so you may not know what your resources are, you may not have many resources. Now, one of the biggest effects from economic abuse is stress. Financial stress is a big form of stress in general in people's lives. Stress in and of itself can affect your brain and your body in a multitude of ways. I want to talk about two things that happen specifically with trauma, with stress that happen in your brain and in your body, and why that causes stress to affect your body and your brain. So those two things are, one is adrenaline that is released into your body when you have a traumatic experience, and the other is cortisol. So adrenaline increases your brain's ability to make emotional memory, and I'll unpack that in a little bit. Cortisol decreases your brain's ability to integrate those memories. So what does that mean? An emotional memory is when, let's say, you go on a bike ride. You're going along, you're having a good time, then you run into a curb and you fall off your bike, or you flip over the front of your bike and there's a huge crowd and everyone sees it, and you are so embarrassed. You go home, the next day you see your bike and you have that same feeling of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. That is an emotional memory. The bike has no emotion attached to it until you have a traumatic experience. Now that traumatic experience has attached those emotions, those very strong emotions, to the bike. So when you see the bike, you have this, what is called a trigger. Those emotional memories, remember, are increased when adrenaline is coursed throughout the body. So in traumatic experiences especially, there's there's emotional memories that are attached to many different things. People can have those emotional memories or triggers to smells, to people, to names, touch, to holidays, to colors, to sequence of events, so many different things, literally everything you can have these emotional memories for. So you have a traumatic experience and your brain is just making all these emotional memories. Now, at the same time, cortisol is released. Cortisol is good. We need cortisol. It's what helps us get up in the morning and move around. So in a traumatic experience, when cortisol is released, it literally shuts off the part of the brain that integrates memories. Well, what it means to integrate a memory into your brain is that it makes it literally a memory instead of a present event. You need these memories integrated in order to become the past. So this is what happens with PTSD. You literally feel like you are reliving that experience over and over and over again every time that emotional memory is triggered. So this all happens so fast, and every time you have a traumatic experience, this can happen. And so when you have multiple traumatic experiences over and over and over and over again, and your body and your brain are constantly in a state of fight or flight or freeze, then this stress impacts your body and your brain, and you start having triggers, and you can have PTSD, and you can also develop other things within your body like anxiety and depression and autoimmune diseases and other random things, aches and pains that no one can really explain but are there, and sometimes they can be manageable and sometimes they can't. But they can be directly related to the stress that is then related to the trauma. So I hope you learned something. I hope you liked this video. Please feel free to like or share, and I'll see you in the next video.